we're going to see what this sounds like, see if everybody else can hear anything. I got to turn people's audios on. I'm not hearing... How does that make any sense? I'm not hearing myself at all right now. That's weird. Okay, maybe once I launched it, everything went back to normal? I don't get it. But
is the echoing done?
I can't hear the echo anymore.
Okay, we can hear you. You just can't hear yourself. Did you do a quick little... Do you want a quick little record to see how you sound? Because it sounds like you might have fixed it.
Yeah, you sound good to us.
Yep. Okay, I think we're good then. Because I can't hear me anymore. I can hear you guys normally. It wasn't until I launched the stream that I was not having that issue.
Huh.
So I don't get it. But we're going to launch it. We're going to see what happens.
Don't touch it.
Right?
Don't touch anything.
Don't even look at it.
It'll be all right. I did turn everybody down a little bit, so hopefully that's not going to kill us on the audio, but maybe it'll make it better so we're not blowing people's eardrums out. I don't know. Find out in a minute. All right, so we're going to... And 3, 2, 1... Hey, everybody. We are here for another Tavern Talks. This one is the illustrious villains. All right.
Yeah, buddy.
As everybody is excited to talk about the bad guys.
That's right.
All right. We're going to make a really quick check on audio.
Yes, Twitch. Do we sound good? Can you hear us? Check, check. 1, 2.
I think we're sounding good.
Hold on.
Music to my ears.
I'm not hearing anything on Twitch.
Can I bring it up on my phone? Perhaps.
My Twitch is all the way up, and I'm not hearing anything. That's not good.
No,
but I see everybody moving, which is weird. Interesting. Can anybody hear us on Twitch? Here. Oh God, I can't type tonight. No.
Okay.
Oh goodness. Rutro Raggy. Let's see what's going on. We have 0 audio. So where did the audio go?
How about Corey? Is it working on your end?
If it is, we can flood people over to yours.
Yep. I can hear sound on my side.
Okay, I can't hear anything on our end. Why not?
Because you need to download the regular OBS.
Apparently, this is ridiculous. I've never had this much problem.
Yep, and somebody from my stream says they can hear us just fine.
Okay.
Perfect.
If we can get any sort of audio, this will be fantastic. Okay, in the meantime, if you want to hear us, I'm going to get Chrysalis Endeavor's link. We're going to post this up in here, and we're going to swap over there for the night because for some reason the audio is jacked up.
And yeah, I can send you the recording too to post on your YouTube.
Yeah.
That'll
All
make
right,
it
so
easy.
give us just a minute to grab that link. Corey, can you get me that?
Yep. Let me. I have to switch back to yours because I was testing mine. There we go. Pop that in there.
So,
Message deleted by moderator. It says.
No.
Stop posting links automated by Nightbot. It says you can't post links in your chat.
No, that's lame. Hold on.
Perhaps send the link.
I'm going to get banned from
James.
Tabletop Misfits here is what's going to happen.
No, you're not. Here, hold on. Because you know who can't get banned from this? Me.
Exactly.
I just got to find your guys' channel, and I'm just going to post the crap out of it as we gather people.
All right. It is CC Endeavors.
I gotcha.
Yep.
Oh, okay. We're streaming right now.
And for some reason, I keep getting a jumble mess for Josh. Let me refresh his stream there.
Okay.
There we go.
I can post it. Aha!
Victory! Woo!
Come all ye faithful. Come all he faithful. That's a little bit sexist there, Lord Stan.
What's happening?
Just what on my chat stream.
Oh. All right, let's see. I'm frozen on stream.
Okay, let me refresh that.
It sounds like you might have been.
Oh, yeah, you're frozen on the OBS Ninja.
This is
there you go. Now I can see you moving. Yeah, there we go.
There we go. All right, awesome. So we are finally here to talk about villains.
Yay, finally, villains. Hey, nobody heard our laughs. I think we should do another round of laughs.
All right. So we are talking about villains tonight.
Yeah, guys.
So first of all, for some reason you're frozen, but that's okay. I'll start with a little exercise here. It'll be a little improv exercise that we're going to do. And so, first question here: think of a villain, right? The four of us are going to create a villain in this quick impromptu exercise, and I'll just kind of throw the questions around and start with you, James. What is this villain's desire? What do they want most? What do we want to say that they are passionate about? What do they want to happen?
The desire of the villain. This villain.
All right. So, out for revenge. Josh, I'll throw it over to you. What does the villain need from the party, or why is there a conflict with the party in this scenario? They're out for revenge. What's the conflict?
Let's say, the conflict can be,
okay, so we have a nation that the party is from and a different nation that the villain is from?
Yes.
All right. All right, Chris, you're up. What is the method by which the villain is going to try to subdue or take out the party? What method are they going to use? Intrigue, combat? What is it that they are going to try and do?
Okay, so is this villain like? Are we creating the villain from the picture?
Oh, do we have the picture, James?
We do have a picture. It's up on Discord. If you want to grab that.
So if it's going to be that guy specifically, he looks like a brute, like a very forceful. I can see him building an army, using political propaganda to rally troops and invade the rival territory.
Okay, so we've got what I'm hearing so far is that we've got a villain who wants revenge. They are building an army, and the party, the conflict there is that the party is going to have to I guess, try to keep him from building up an army, or trying to intercede in his villainous plans. So when we talk about revenge, there's usually something lost. What was it? And I'll throw it back to James. What was it that our villain lost that it has to avenge?
Since we're talking about warring nations, his older brother was slain during a battle early within the war.
Okay, so he's avenging his brother. He's attacking our nation, or the party's nation. The method is he's trying to get a political clout. So, what type of adventure do we want the party to have here? Is this going to be straight out combat? Are they going to try and infiltrate the warring nation? And how are we going to have the party interact with this villain? Josh, up to you.
So, pending the party makeup would be the route I would go. You know, if it's like rogues and stuff like that, of course, like a stealthy kind of infiltration attack would be kind of cool to run. If it was just, a lot of barbarians or anything like that, fighters and things, probably more of a combat heavy, encounter heavy kind of run through things is the way I would go.
All right, and back to you, Chris. Let's say we have the initial meeting of the villain and the party. What would that look like?
Well, it depends on when you want to do it, because you can always throw him in earlier on when he's just starting off. You could see him rallying people together. They may not even know what he's exactly doing. Just kind of like a little foreshadowing. Other than that, I think for like a character like what I'm picturing in my head here, this would be like a kind of walk in, do a big battle encounter where you think you're about to fight him. No. He's making you fight one of his lieutenants or one of his other guys. It's kind of like a mini boss. I think that would be a really good introduction for a character like this. So you get that like, oh no, I'm not going to fight you. No, you're going to fight this guy. Good luck. I'll catch you on the flip side. And then checks out.
Awesome. All right, so we have this idea of a villain. He's kind of a brutish. Do we have a name, James? Do we think we could come up with a name real quick?
If we're following based off of the artwork, then his name would be Nalzak, the Condemned.
Nalzak, the Condemned. Okay, so that brings another piece. Condemned by who? And I'm going to throw in my 2 cents here. Let's say his brother was slain and he was blamed for it by his government, and this group of people he's assembling aren't necessarily the army of that other nation. Maybe they're a bunch of mercenaries. Maybe they're a bunch of other ne'er-do-wells that don't belong to either country or principality, and he's developing his own group of people, right? And so the party finds out about this growing threat on the border, and they go out to find it, and that's when they run upon one of Nalzak's lieutenants and find that he's kind of left them in the lurch and has returned to recruit more people. And that could be the second part of that piece, is to track him down, to find out that this is only one of his many camps, kind of a it starts out very small and then grows quickly to like almost a Fight Club style thing where you're like, oh man, these people are everywhere in both countries. Oh no, right? All right, so the reason why I wanted to kind of run through that is because I think, and I'm going to throw it back to James to take control of hosting here. All of these things that we just talked about are really important for a good villain. Why they're doing what they're doing, what stands in their way, and how the party has some conflict with that villain. Because sometimes it doesn't, like with this guy, that he may not even be evil per se. It's just there's conflict there. So throw it back to you, James. What else do we want to talk about villains?
So there's many different archetypes of villains. If you go through modern or book,
You all hear me? I lost you guys for a second.
Yeah, plus a lot of the there's lots of creatures, especially fiends and stuff like that you can really play with. The I hope I'm pronouncing this right. The Rakasa or Rakshasa. They are very manipulative creatures. They typically will change into the form of a noble or somebody of influence and be kind of pulling the strings. I have a campaign myself where there is one of these creatures that plays at least 3 to 4 different people within the world, all pulling at little puppet strings. So you can definitely try to just go through, look up some of the monsters if you're trying to come up with a really good villain, and maybe see how you can add to what is already there. How about the rest of you guys? So, like, when you're looking for an influence for a villain for your own campaign, where do you guys like to typically draw from that? James?
Personally, I like to draw from, inspiration from different books that I've read, different stories, different fairy tales, even movies, all different kinds of things. And I'll draw in that inspiration, and if something needs to be modified in there, I'll modify it. But the root of a lot of that you could use as for good villain creation. And sometimes I do things like that. I'm not picking up audio from these guys.
Do you hear me?
Oh. Yep.
All right. James is back now, it looks like.
There you are.
Okay.
So inspiration.
Now we do have the hurricane thing going on right now around here, so it might be part of the internet. Correct.
Okay. Thanks, Lord Stanton. Sounds like they can hear on the stream just fine.
Corey, your audio is completely out.
Mine is?
I hear
you just fine, buddy.
Okay.
Okay, then it's me again.
All right. So inspiration, I get inspirations from a lot of different places. I'll be listening to a song and something will like key in my head, and I'll be like, oh, that's a villain. Or I'll just, a situation will happen where I'll go, yeah, if somebody really believed that for real, that might be a good key for a villain. For example, there was a situation, I don't remember who I was talking to or where this came up, but I was talking about COVID and how some people were really stressed out and have a lot of anxiety about COVID. And the person I was talking to at work said, it just felt like there was something really wrong that nobody else could see. And I thought in my head, I'm going to save that. And then later I'm thinking there's this villain that wants to correct things, and they see something in society that doesn't really make sense to them, so they go to correct it. And of course, that's kind of like the Thanos villain, right? That's that they have this thing that they want to correct and make right, and they just go off on a different path to try and do that. So I get inspiration from conversations anywhere, and I think, hey, let's take that little thing that we're talking about and kind of push it to the nth degree, and that's going to create the conflict and create the villain.
I think another good thing to think of is look at Strahd, just a overall cursed bee with a really tragic, really messed up backstory. The finding this true love, making a deal to get her, not able to win her heart, and she even goes to the extent of throwing herself off a cliff to get away from him. And like a story like that, like a romantic tragedy, makes for a very compelling character as well. So think of a story. Try to think of, like we just came up with this character that we started the stream off. Corey, by the way, the idea you presented there, sign me up for that campaign, man. But yeah, there's lots of like inspiration, and like you look at Curse of Strahd, you're like, okay, so Dracula, right? Like you look at a lot of the little points. I was even looking through it the other day, and I was just thinking to myself, this is so on point with Dracula. You even get like the reincarnated version of his love, and all this stuff, and it's like, okay, so yeah, it's great to be able to pull from a lot of real classic stuff. I've even done a campaign where the entire thing is nothing but 70s, 80s, 90s horror movie references. All just depends on what kind of story you're wanting to tell. That's another thing to consider. Like if you want like something that seems very fantastical and very like dark but romantic, like a Strahd type story. And this goes back to what Josh said. It's really on, what kind of players you have. If you're going with heavy combat, then the guy that we started talking about at the beginning of this stream, that's probably your villain there. But you can also try to think smaller as well, like a group of bandits that's trying to expand Something I've even done one where you can have little mini villains in your campaign that are just kind of like, you could come across this if you make a good perception check, or you could not. I've used it before in my Nexus Tower campaign where there was a succubus in the town, and she was working some of the people, and some of the people were very notable figures in the community. One of the people being the person who ran the town. So you can do a lot of little things. Sometimes a villain doesn't have to be, you know, I'm taking over the world, or I'm going to wipe out half of the world to preserve the what we have available to us, our resources. Which, okay, Thanos, man, you have the gauntlet, man. Just double the resources. Come on. But yeah, you don't always have to go big and grand, because maybe you want to do a short campaign. So, you know, outbreak of zombies. Somebody was digging in a mine and unleashed a creature from the Underdark. You can have it really like, it just all depends on what kind of story you want to tell. Big, small, and kind of go from there.
So I have a question. It's almost like it's almost the same thing as we did earlier. And James, Josh, jump in on this one. How have you ever used a friend in the campaign and turned them into a villain? How have you a character that the people that the party trusts or have liked and they become a villain?
NPC or an actual player?
We'll start with NPC. Player is sometimes that just happens naturally, right? The player starts playing this character that goes off the rails. But we'll start with NPC.
Fun. So with an NPC, it's a little bit easier to do, as you can kind of have more control over the mold of how things lay out and how things happen. You know, one good example that I've used before is the turning of a mind flare situation with NPCs, and you know, it could be very, very entertaining to watch the transformation kind of play out throughout the scene. But you know, I believe that's a good example of using an NPC transforming into a villain. You almost can't get more villainous than mind flare.
All they're searching for is knowledge. They're misunderstood. They're not actually villains. Come on, people. Just because they're scary and they kind of look like a very strange god that has all these...
alone.
Yeah, leave them alone. They're wonderful
they're just
creatures.
squid people.
Poor spaghetti face man.
Yeah, like, goodness. Everybody picks on them, but if you really break down the ending of it's a hive. It's a community. They're just building a very large one.
Okay, yes, but just don't repeat that to any Gith. They're not going to like it.
Yeah.
But then we kind of go back and forth between who's the good ones, who's the good guys, and who's the bad guys. Because the Gith aren't very great either. In all honesty, they're
no, they're not. Yeah. Yes, exactly.
So, so
another cool thing you can do is you can.
Oh, go for it, Josh.
I was gonna say another cool thing you can do is you can kind of build up that villain. You know what I mean? The villain doesn't technically have to be like this horrible, you know, piece of garbage. You know what I mean? There are some villains that, you know, the party can grow an attachment to. You know, like Xanathar, for instance. You know what I mean? There's kind of a little bit of humor behind that whole thing there. And I mean, his best friend's a goldfish, you know, that he keeps in the and then isn't there, I believe there's somebody that constantly replaces the goldfish so that way Xanathar doesn't notice that it's missing, you know. And those little quirks in there on like the creation of a villain is really kind of cool aspect as well.
What kind of brings it back down to a humane understanding, so that each villain, though they are this rival or this evil, there is a flaw to them, or there's a quirk to them, something that makes them less, just gives them some sort of flavor rather than just undying. I am the evil person, and that's all I can think about, and there's nothing else in my mind.
Right.
So.
Granted, those guys have their place too.
I'm gonna answer my own question here with one of the things I love to do, which is a bait and switch, right? The quest giver for multiple quests, they end up finding out is having them do things that they thought were righteous and good, but ended up fueling this person's own agenda. And then once that's unveiled, they're like, oh, I can't believe they made us do that. Oh, and then, basically tricking the party into doing their evil for them. And that bait and switch is a really fun thing to pull off when you do it right.
And that sounds like a total Xanathar kind of move too, right? like yeah, for sure. I think another thing is the sympathetic villain. I don't know about you guys. I'm a big geek. Love my comic books. I love Mr. Freeze. I love him so much. Not Arnie Mr. Freeze. I mean, like the Mr. Freeze, or like the best reference is the 90s Batman animated series. And this is like you have a man who's like, he's committing these crimes, but if you look at why he's doing it, which one of you can blame Mr. Freeze? Put yourself in his shoe, right?
Yeah, so they actually did this really well. I don't know if you've watched the Fox TV show Gotham. They broke down all the villains in this weird, somewhat understood way compared to just villains are villains and then Batman takes care of the villains. Like, it's great, but when they broke that down, it was fantastic.
On that show, and I'm just like, he's like, he went from being that, like, I'm really
we lost one.
Yep, we lost one. Apparently Fox heard him and
exactly.
I lost you guys there for a second.
Yeah.
The speaker, the one, the whisper, somebody within your background, especially if it's some sort of patron or deity of some sort, you can always play fun with those too, because you can almost get your players then to start thinking a different way. I personally was not playing in this game, but I've had friends that that played in a game where the entire campaign they were doing something, and right as they were getting ready to hit the climax, they realized that they were doing this for a demon who they were about to release. Entire campaign, like months and months of story, and then at the end they're like, hey, who do you choose? Do you choose to help the demon that you've been helping the entire time, or do you go after him?
I like that.
So
yeah, I like the sympathetic. I like the sympathetic villain. Matter of fact, the villain for the Murder in Motley, which is the GUI Cube adventure I'll be running at Gen Con. Well, I don't know if I'm running it. I'm not sure who's running it, but it's the adventure that I developed and ran here locally, the villain is very sympathetic, but you don't like you were saying, James, you don't really find out until the end why things are the way they are. So
mysteries are really good for that, because you're driving that up to that point, right? And mysteries are sometimes the most difficult things to run in a campaign because players do weird things that take them off the beaten path. But when you can pin somebody in on a mystery and they get excited about it, that's really fun to slowly give them breadcrumbs left and right until they realize that either the person they've been talking to the entire time is not as good as they thought they were, or maybe it was something that happened to somebody's family, and there's a multitude of things that can happen with this, but this is really a fun way to bring that sympathetic villain into the picture. Another fun one, and like I said, I've played with, and this was more of it developed this way. When I was playing my home game here at the house, and we were around the table, it was interesting to sometimes take players away and talk to them one-on-one. And you can really influence somebody when you're speaking to somebody at a one-on-one compared to the whole group. It's a little harder to do that when you're online, but when you're when you're next door, you can pull somebody aside and have that conversation. Well, my son, who was playing a warlock at the time, wanted like he was just curious of this power that he was given, and every few sessions or so, he would get this request from the patron to go slay this massive evil. And then every once in a while, and once he did it, then his weapon would then evolve in a way. Well, at the end of it, he's asked to throw his weapon into the portal. And as it does, it rips the hole open and pulls them into the patron's world. And that's where the campaign had ended for the time. And everybody around kind of had that, oh crap, we are now in a different world. And it was one of those things where nobody realized that though he was a warlock and though he was doing these things, they were killing off these really nasty creatures that were making havoc to everything, but not realizing that all they were doing was powering this authority in another planar realm to potentially head this direction. So that was a fun one.
I think another approach you can take with a villain is a villain of pure mystery. Like you think of the Joker, nobody really has a set.
So does anybody have any questions in here? I can't see the chat, but I know Corey can.
I don't see. The only thing I've seen is Lord Stan's been commenting a little bit, but there hasn't been any questions on my stream. But I haven't been watching your stream.
Yeah, so I've got both up, though I'm not doing much on here. It's just us, pretty much our faces flickering around on the screen and whatnot. But since there's no audio, and I feel really bad about that, but we'll fix that next week. Well, actually, I've got to get that fixed before Sunday, but that's the point. Yeah, so villains. The book, the Dungeon Master's Guide, definitely has a lot of random tape.
So Corey brought up the possibility too of using PCs as villains.
I think he's having an issue hearing you, Chris.
Oh, can you not hear me, James? Yeah,
Yep.
Chris is talking.
Yep, Chris is talking, and you're frozen on my screen. I don't know.
Oh, guys.
I don't know, but oh, there. Now you're moving. Now we can see you again.
Okay,
Yeah.
are we
Oh,
better?
you blinked. Yeah.
Hey, and Chris is back. We got
Yay!
it.
All right. So
That's awesome.
Yeah, Chris is back. Yeah.
Chris has been here the whole time.
Cool. Yeah, but he couldn't hear him. That was
I'm
the
blaming
problem.
OBS Ninja. That's what I'm saying. That's
Yeah.
The cursed OBS Ninja.
I think that I think that Discord was working like it was pretty solid for me. I don't know what's maybe it's the individual streams coming into OBS. I don't know.
Yeah.
But at any rate, yes, if there are people in the chat that would like to create a villain, let's get on it. Let's any ideas, and we will ad lib like we never have before to make up something.
So while that tries to populate, you brought up using the possibility of using PCs as villains. So what do you guys feel about that?
I had it happen naturally in a campaign.
Mm-hmm.
There was a character who was a half devil paladin, and let me tell you, somebody who was a paladin and was righteous and like slowly turning dark as they leveled up, to the point where they actually wanted their own plane of hell to rule. It became that PC became an enemy, and there was actually a point where that PC and the cleric, who was the adopted father figure of that PC, were both players. And the final episode of that campaign, where it was almost like you were the chosen one type thing there, because the person playing the father figure, he looked like he was about to cry because of how it was all going down there at the end. So yeah, it was good stuff, but I think it has to happen naturally. It has to happen with the story. It has to happen. It can't be some secretive agenda that the DM has to make a PC out to be a villain, because I don't think that's fair to the players. I think it has to happen kind of organically within the story.
I would agree with that. Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
James, how about you, man? You ever had a PC turn into villain, or
like I said, my son's character turned into
Right.
one of the side villains. He wasn't the exact, but he definitely had that direction heading. I believe if we would have gotten to a higher level campaign, that it would have developed into that. So,
Josh?
I haven't personally had a player, turn into the villain. But what I have had is players where they've changed their story dramatically by making choices to aid the villain and kind of, switch things up. So that's the situation that I've dealt with. I've never had a player that actually goes into a villain. I would imagine it would be something that, like Corey said, you want it to happen naturally. I wouldn't. I wouldn't try and devise that into the story myself.
It's only ever happened with me once. It was actually with one of my characters, and yeah, it just kind of happened naturally. There was just so happened that everybody's background story had this little opening for a connection between everybody, and my DM at the time really ran with that. She's actually one of those kind of the sympathetic, or I guess more of a Thanos type villain, where she has an ideal based on a trauma that she's going to try to rectify worldwide. I don't want to spoil too much because the people in that campaign watched the stream, but so natural is the way for sure if you're going to do that. Also, just even just if it's for one fight, like if you have that, the tank in your party, the barbarian, and you have somebody put an amulet on them or something that does a mind control, it definitely adds a lot of tension in the campaign, especially if your players have been playing with this PC for a while, and it's like, oh, I might have to kill my buddy. No.
Yeah.
What do I do?
Cursed items are nasty.
Mm-hmm.
Like having somebody with a sentient item that talks or that can take over a body at a time. Those are definitely fun ways to shift it.
Hex warlock in one of my campaigns who I allowed, I don't know why I did this, but I did it. It was good for the backstory, but I allowed him to have Black Razor as his packed weapon. Just so you know, anyone who's not familiar with Black Razor, you kill a creature, you get temporary hit points equal to its maximum health pool. You have Soul Hunter, which is the awareness of every living thing within 120 feet, and it consumes souls. So, Black Razor, fun.
Oh, yeah.
So, James, you have a whole party of villains in one of your games, don't you?
I do. I'm running an entire game that is flipped on the upside down.
An evil campaign. That's awesome.
Completely evil. We're playing. We're playing through the Tomb of Annihilation, but the idea is they want to overthrow a Sararak rather than take out the Soulmonger. So, and it's definitely been different. There's been a lot of curveballs that were thrown. One thing I will tell players immediately if they go, hey, I want to play an evil campaign, and this isn't my first one, but this is the first one that has drawn on as long as this has. We've been playing this for over a year now. Don't think you are going to be the Murder Hobo tribe at level 1. Don't think you're a mastermind at level 1. When they first showed their evil, it caught me as a game master off guard. And that's when I went, okay, you guys understand the logic behind it, the planning it takes, and the little steps that need to be made. Because they had actually they were within the jungle, and they found a party of the Flaming Fist, who is the organization that kind of kills off the undead throughout the jungle in Tomb of Annihilation. And they rescued 3 of the veterans who were way above their power, but the zombies killed off 2 and there was only 1 left. And as they were discussing and having conversations with him, finding out, he was thanking them for help and getting ready to take him back to the camp. They asked where the camp was at. They got a couple bits of information, and then they're like, and we backstabbed. And I was like, excuse me? Like, yeah, all of us want to hit him right now. And I was like, oh, we're doing this. Like,
oh, buddy's going down like Jon Snow.
Because he had already been weakened because of the zombies that had attacked already. So he was maybe at half health. And just coordinated attack, boom, dead. Walked away with a +1 weapon, walked away with some other nice gear. But they walked away knowing how to be real villains rather than just your thug and whatnot. And now they're closing in on what I call the tier between tier 2 and tier 3 gaming. So they're heading into level 10 here shortly, which is where the end of Tomb of Annihilation should end. But they haven't even touched Omu yet because they're dealing with other random things in the jungle now. Not to mention the military overthrow of Baldur's Gate taking over Portney and Zaru, surrounding it by more Flaming Fist among other organizations that are coming in that have much higher authority. So when they return, so this is something that another game master that I'm very close friends with has said, is that try to bring your players back to something that they think they know and then show them what has changed, because it brings the world into a new light. And when we showed them that they're villains coming back into an area that is now militaristically redesigned and not just a commerce port, and what they had to do to stay secure and to stay safe and to organize their way around the city the second time they were there was much different than they were there when they arrived. So
that's cool.
It was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, Tomb of Annihilation. I like that you're doing that and you're flipping the script on that, making it an evil campaign. I'm like, yeah. Oh wow.
Yeah, so they just raided Fort Balorian finally at level 8. But Fort Balorian has been restocked with much more developed characters. there's an organization called the Champions of Seoul because we were doing things around May the 4th. So it's literally a bunch of high level elven knights running around with sunblades. And the funny thing is, though, is you can still bring villains that are good people to a campaign that's nothing but villains. But a lot of times you have to look at people's backstory and you have to hit them where it hurts. So like a rival is one of the ones that we brought into the world now. And they're like, oh, okay, I hate this guy. Like I hate him. And there's this burning passion to kill this guy. And he's gotten away twice now. And they hate the fact that he's continuing his, and not to mention, you now have the fun of playing the heroic campaign. So you can design parties around, the call for help. And then you're bringing in actual parties of adventurers to hunt through the jungle, to find these people, to try to kill them, because they're now the big bad guys. So it's definitely been a fun flip on the script, but it's been a journey that's a lot of fun.
So I'm gonna flip the script again and pose this to Josh. What have you ever had a lawful good villain or a good aligned villain of some sort? Maybe not a villain, but definitely somebody who's
an antagonist of some sort.
Story. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've used a few generals of the prevailing continent, the army of the nation, the king or the ruler of the land has this general, that has that shady kind of bit about him. You know what I mean? He's working for the good nation, you know what I mean, doing the good things, but he's got that little bit of nefariousness about him, but for some reason the king or the ruler is, blind to that fact. You know what I mean? Sometimes the classic, military kind of nefarious general kind of guy. I've used him a few times.
So I got a question for you guys, and this is something I'm sure almost every game master struggles with at one point in time, naming these buggers. So, Josh, how do you usually approach names?
So to name, so I use I have some tables that I have prepared that have a lot of different names. So like if it's a male, orc, I have a table and I'll pull up all these cool orcish names, and it helps me kind of generate something on the fly. Sometimes I may not say exactly what it is in the table, but it's giving me enough to where I could twist it that little bit, you know what I mean, to kind of make up a name on the fly, because it does arise. Sometimes when that situation arises, I like to get the players involved too. Especially if it's a NPC that's not like a major NPC, just like a side NPC, and they happen to just say, "Hey, who's this guy?" Okay, well now you got to name this guy that you didn't really have prepared for a name, right? So sometimes I'll toss it back to them, and hey, what should we name this thing, guys? And I'll toss it to one of the players, and they'll throw out a name. Sometimes it comes out cheesy and he's Bob, you know what I mean? Sometimes it comes out really good, but those are things I've done before too.
How about you, Corey?
So I don't have a table. Usually I just try and come up with start putting consonants and vowels together and see how they sound, right? And then sometimes I'll use a word instead, like that's not a name. So one of the villains that I wrote into my submission to the Eastern Verdestia supplement for GUI Cube is a pirate named Tickle. And he is definitely a villain. He is a bad guy, but his name is Tickle. He's got, he's a dark elf. He's got dreadlocks, and he sails a ship around and he participates in slave trade and stuff like that. And he's also a Hanataz and does these shows on his ship where the rich people from a town, when they take port, come on and they come to get scared on the haunted ship, while he robs them and steals information and sells state secrets across the sea to other people. I mean, he's definitely a bad person, but I use a word instead of, you know, a name, so that the word kind of catches in the players' minds, because they'll never, you know, when they meet Tickle, they're like, oh, that's funny. And then they're like, this guy's horrible, when they figure out what he's up to, right?
I like that, like a bait and switch.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, yeah. Tickle, he sounds like a great guy. He might have some boundary issues, but other than that, pretty cool. And then you meet him and you're like, oh, you've got a lot more than boundary issues. I get you.
You're way too close for me, buddy. Step back just a little bit.
How about you, James?
So I'd kind of do both. I guess I'm more of the blend on that one. Is I have a few tables, right? What I'll do is I'll go out and I'll come up with first and last names of certain types of what I believe are going to be the area that they're going to be involved in. And a lot of times I'll be like, okay, this is what I'm going to name it. And then as I'm going through the game, or as we're progressing the story, I'll go, I don't like that last name. First name, last name, first name, last. Like, and you start picking and choosing. And sometimes the players will be just as creative as you are, and they'll change the name on you without you thinking it's changed. And a lot of the times you'll get the same way of how he created Tickle, where they'll just resonate to an actual name of something, or a single word that connects them to this character. A lot of times you'll see that kind of thing happen in games. The strange ones are the ones where you have to you want to kind of give them an identity by the name. And those ones are, you hear a lot of that with orcs, a lot of that with your monstrous races, like Lothar the Corrupt, or Grognar the Brutal. Like, you add those names to it to kind of give them a little bit more of a depth to their character. But you don't have to. Or you could just call them the Brutal, you know, the Bone Smasher. Really? Like, I'm not going up against the Bone Smasher if I'm a level 2 wizard, unless I've got my stuff ready to go. Those types of things, and it really is just you got to decide how you want to make your races. Normal races for most players will have a first and last name, or at least a first name. Developed characters you'd want to give them a full on, if they have some sort of lineage that bases with their campaign, but you have to also make sure that this is something players want. Try not to design these elaborate things and then the players not care, because then you're wasting a lot of your own time, but you're also burning just this time that could be used for other things to make things more exciting for your players. And I think that is the main focus, that we as game masters are there to tell a story, but sometimes the nitty gritty details aren't what you're going to remember at the end of the story. You're going to remember the big things, the excitement. And sometimes you'll remember Tickle, you know, like these are these random connections that you'll get, and you'll get really excited about them, where other times you won't connect properly, or it won't piece things together. So we're creating a dwarven bad guy.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. We got a request from the stream to create a dwarf villain.
Dwarf villain. You know, let's have some fun. So let's it's only going to take us maybe 3-4 minutes. Does anybody have some dice? We'll toss into some of these schemes and methods, and then we can play off of these two things, and we'll come up with this dwarven guy. We'll give him some personality, some physical features, and And I've also informed our wonderful artist who did our villain of the night has stated that if we want to, he's going to take the community villain and make him come to life. So I'm kind of excited about that, especially since we're playing a dwarf.
Thank you, Nat.
So,
just going to show that out there. Thanks, Nat.
bud.
If you're watching, man, your work is always awesome.
Oh
Love
God,
seeing
yes!
your new
I
stuff.
can't wait to show everyone all the players that he is his interpretation of all the players for our stream next week or this week. So we're revealing all of them, and other than mine, who's going to stay secret for a little bit. So, but does anybody want to roll me a D8? And then
we have another
a
edition
D4
here. The dwarven bad guy lives in a human town and was adopted, but we'll go with the rolls now. D8.
Okay.
All right, so you wanna do the D8, Josh, and I'll grab the D4.
Sure.
Yeah, so we'll need one of each dice depending on what we hit. So because we've got schemes and methods, that's what we're messing with tonight. Once we get these schemes and methods, and we're going to develop him out real fast and see what happens.
I got a 1 on my D4.
You're 1 on your D4. Okay.
Rolling the 8 now.
Okay.
I got an 8.
An 8. So his scheme is wealth, and you have a 1. So his goal is to control the natural resources or trade. Super. So we'll make sure we remember that. So his scheme is wealth, and he's trying to control natural resources or trade. He's a dwarven guy who's been adopted into a human town. This could get interesting very quick. I need to roll. Somebody roll me.
I know what you're about to say, Josh. I know exactly what you're about to say.
What's that?
Sorry, so Josh has an NPC in his world of Anaron. That is pretty much exactly what we're describing right now.
Okay, well, let's see if it continues to develop that way. Somebody roll me a D20, please.
I can get that.
All right.
Let's see. I use my favorite one, red and black marble. Here we go. Oh, it's letting me down. That's a 2.
2.
At least it's not an attack roll.
Okay. This is so there is no additions to this one. So his methods of doing so is assault or beating.
All right.
So we have a very bruiser-like character who's trying to gain wealth through control of a natural resource or trade.
All right, I got this one. I got a little bit here.
Go for it.
I got this idea. So the in the town there is actually the person who kind of brought him to the town, not his adopted family, but a merchant that does business with dwarfs. So this merchant brings ore to the town. The merchant's daughter and this dwarf grew up together, and grew to be great friends, developed a relationship, and now the dwarven villain per se is trying to take control of that merchant's business as he grows into old age by basically having a very terribly abusive relationship with his daughter and holding the family hostage.
All right.
See, that sounds like a villain I'd be happy to take down.
Right? So
right? Exactly.
So dwarven, see, this is where this is the reason I wanted to do this with some of these tables is this isn't something you roll in the middle of a campaign. You use these at the beginning and then you build on them. So we have this bald dwarf who has been raised in this small town, was given away by, is more of a, I can't take care of this kid. I found him on the road.
Yep.
And handed off to a local family. But when he came of age, he found this man's informed of his trade. And then over time, infiltrates the family, falls in love, or well, at least states that he falls in love with his daughter, the connection that they had when they first were met, and find out it's a huge abusive relationship. And now he's stating that, you know, once he's in the family, you know, he's the next heir. Right. So he pulls on these heartstrings very well. Yeah. So you guys.
All right. So I think we should come up with a name. Okay. And if you guys don't mind, I wouldn't mind maybe throwing my 2 cents in for maybe the first name, and then maybe we can give him a middle and last. So I'm going to use one of my methods. So one of my methods involves, I think of the character, and then I look up names that have meaning. So this guy is like, he's into the wealth, right? So I looked up names that mean wealthy. So Adelik, Adelik, successful, full of concentration, achieving honors and wealth. So that I'll give that for the first name. Who wants to take it from there?
I'll attack the last name. If somebody wants to go for the middle.
See what the last name sounds like. We might not even need a middle name. Just see where we're developing.
Use your method, man. Like for me, that was my method. I find a meaning. I look for a name. Find one I like. I go for that.
So for me, dwarves, you know, they're usually, you know, based off of something warish, something elemental. Sometime, you know, like stones or different types of gems, ores, things like that. You know, so like onyx jaw, or you know, maybe you know, like black axe, something like that would be a kind of a cool. Ember forged would be a kind of a cool one.
Okay, which one are we liking, guys? You know, come on, somebody.
Yeah, which one do you like, Josh? What are you thinking?
Jump one.
I think Ember Forge is cool.
Ember Forge.
Ember Forge sounds really cool.
Adelik Ember Forge.
All right, do we got a middle name or perhaps a title for this guy?
You're thinking, Corey? Come on, Tickle.
So I'm thinking that, you know, the name Adelik Ember Forge is his name, but around town he's known as something else, right?
Oh, yeah.
So it's his nickname, not a middle name, but a nickname.
Right.
And I think around town, and this might have developed him to be kind of the brutish person he is. But around town, he's Anvil Arm, because he's just this, you know, everybody calls him Anvil Arm because he works at the forge. Yeah, maybe, and he's adopted. So, you know, maybe the adopted family has a different name, but they've, you know, they call him Anvil Arm because they're the blacksmiths of the town or something like that. He's been working metal his young life. But, you know, that does bring a good thing. Maybe he's got a human last name, but he forsook it. Because of, and he just chose Ember Forge.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah,
because we don't really know who this child was on the road, right?
Right. Yeah.
But I like Ember Forge because it shows this, you know, this slow glowing, slow building pressure within this villain who has always felt less than in this human town, wants more out of life, and then basically tries to become the richest merchant in town through abuse and whatnot.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. His parents call him Pip Pip, says Lord Stan.
That's good, man. That's really good.
Funny.
All right. So what is his nickname? Can you spell that? For some reason, my audio is catching. I can't understand the name. Anvil Arm. Okay, got it. Yeah. Yeah, Anvil Arm. This is a dwarf, probably now in his middle ages. We got to call him we thinking more of a darker skin.
Yeah,
heavy to the
bald, brawny, maybe some scars because in his youth he was a scrapper.
I kind of picture him being voiced by Gerard Butler, and I would even say give him a crooked nose.
A crooked nose. Punched a little bit too many times, you know.
Oh, you know, you dish it out. Sometimes you got to take it, right?
Yeah, definitely.
But with this character, I'm sure the other guy looked a lot worse.
Oh, yeah, you know. All right, awesome. Yeah, no, he's definitely the kind of a greedy, brutish. His attitude is straight. I'm guessing he's going to be gruff.
Okay, so another question: how would you guys want to create this character? Are we thinking of statting him out like a monster or like a character?
Oh, he'd be a character.
Yeah.
He'd want to have some thought behind him because he could be development of an entire like small arc, especially if any of your players are from this town, so they're going to see the development of this takeover pretty much.
Well, I really like what you were talking about earlier with your Tomb of Annihilation, right?
Mm-hmm.
This character starts as a very helpful person. Then they come back to their hometown and they find, oh, he's now, you know, helping the main merchant run things. He's the muscle for this merchant. And then they come back a third time and find, you know, things have totally changed and this guy's up to no good, right?
Yeah. So we did something kind of like this in a very short period of time. We did kind of this when we first started our stream in the town of Grandorf, where they found a high noble and his wife, and they were having this confrontation. And of course, our brutish barbarian decides the first thing he's going to do is he sees the woman being insulted, just runs up and just punches this dude straight in the face, right? But you find out later on that she's running off to this abandoned temple because she has fallen in love with a creature from within, and the story develops that she was being abused because of her blood touch, which is the understanding within the world of Xyothay and Gooey Cube that it's the connection that you have to either magical means, but it's so deep within you that you have abilities that others would not have normally. I think fantasy, X-Men, and that kind of a mentality. But it also makes it so that not everybody has to play the weird random race and not make any sense. So, which is where this all comes from. But once they found all this out, then they started to become almost this sympathy character. But she was doing something she wasn't supposed to by running off and doing all these things because she was married and all that stuff. And it came into this very political, moral feeling. And then all of a sudden they were like, oh, wait, no. This man takes care of the town, but he's doing horrible things to his wife and all this stuff. So developments like that definitely catch your players off guard. They also catch your listeners if you have stream and stuff because they don't see those things coming. But yeah, no, I can see this dwarven blacksmith kind of venture off for a while. Maybe he found a name for himself at first, heading off to a town that he could learn or apprentice off of, and then came back and develops himself to take over the business. This is we've got a new villain, everyone.
Yeah. So are we gonna create him right here, right now? Is that the idea? Like full on okay. So guys, what background? What are we doing for background? Are we gonna pick merchant? What are you guys thinking?
Merchant,
merchant.
Merchant background.
Okay. So we got a merchant background. You're gonna get some bonuses from that. That's cool. How about class? What class is he gonna be? Multi-classed.
I definitely think he's going to be multi-classed, and I think he needs a level of 2 or mastermind, or some kind of rogue manipulative class, as well as some fighter class of some sort.
I was going to say fighter as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I like the idea of mixed rogue. Okay, so what level is this guy going to be? How many levels are we taking in rogue, and how many levels are we taking in fighter?
It really is going to depend on your party. I mean,
how developed is he?
Yeah, so the question is how developed, or how, once he is confronted, how developed has he gotten?
Right.
This to me would be a very small level NPC of some sort, antagonist or not. This is not going to be anybody above the level of 5, I would say, personally.
Yeah, I was thinking 3rd level.
Yeah,
because a group of 1st level characters could take out a single 3rd level rogue fighter easy. And so maybe 3rd, maybe 4th. Mostly fighter, maybe 1 or 2 levels of rogue if you go up to 5th.
Maybe diving into the rogue at the end, you know, the masterminds, or well, we'd have to look and see how the mastermind, how many he would need for that. But yeah, I would say no more than 5. And that kind of comes down to the tier level of how D&D is set up. In my personal opinion on that is how D&D is set up, which is like 1 through 5 is your local heroes. 6 through 10 is normally somebody in a continent, or has known their exploits has been known now. Whether they're good or bad, they're known farther around. And then once you start getting past level 10, you're starting to get to be known throughout the entirety of a country or a continent. And then after 15, where you're plane shifting and stuff, you're known by everybody at this point. You're either a legend or a myth, even to that point where you're that strong.
Okay, so we're thinking level 5 then?
At max, I would say 5. Okay. Just because we have to, if we want to dabble into the mastermind, I would say we'd have to at least give him a little more than 3. So I'm thinking 3 levels of rogue, probably, or in all honesty, what I think it would be most likely would be 3 levels of rogue and 2 levels of fighter. And then if he developed, he would just continue to go fighter.
All right. So I don't know if you want to do this live. I think something would be really great for the next episode is to be able to show this guy complete with a stat block and everything as well. Do we want to have one of you guys actually roll stats right now, or are we going to do that later?
No, we'll run that later. What we're going to do is we're going to take the information we've got here. We're going to develop the structure that we need to give our artist, and we're going to let him run with it. We're going to see what he develops himself. I don't really want to give him a ton because I want to see his artistic just flourish on this one, because this is created through our stream, and then we'll take it into a PDF. We'll put some stats to it, and we'll hopefully have it presented either by next week. So
cool. So I had a bit of an idea for the aesthetic for this character, because he's an entrepreneur, but he's no pushover. He's a tough guy. I can totally picture him as the dwarf with the very clean braided beard and the slick back hair, and he's almost wearing like a 50s suit. You know, he's got the lapels, he's got the straps and everything, the long sleeve shirt. But you know, when he rolls that thing up, and you see the big boom boom, like, here's the guns, man. Welcome to the gun show. Ka-ching.
Yeah, kind of like the rolled up
1950s
suit almost. Kind of pulling the Miami Vice, like half buttoned down, so you can see a little bit of the dwarven hair,
dwarven chest hair.
Yeah, you know,
maybe even braid that too, man.
Man, I had a player who braided his armpit hair. Man, I'm telling you, it's the weirdest thing in the world. When he told me that, he's like, "Yeah, no, my dwarf braids his armpit hair," and I was like, "Excuse me, like." This is where we're going with this? Good, all right. Whatever.
That's a nimble dwarf to be able to, get those hands under there.
Yeah, I think he paid people, truthfully.
Okay.
It's got a familiar does it for him. A little familiar monkey.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, yeah, we're gonna build the rest of this off screen here. We're gonna knock it out, and then we're gonna get it off to our artist and see what he can come up with, and go from there. So thank
the
you
business
all.
suit is canon.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
50 suit with rolled up sleeves, and I'm gonna kind of give him his run of it, because we're gonna let it go medieval and see where he comes with it.
Yeah.
And
I can't wait to see what you do, buddy.
And then hopefully you'll see it not only on Tabletop Misfits one day, but you'll also probably see it over in Enron Online when that launches here very soon. So yeah, I've had a great time working with all three of these wonderful game masters. They've all got creative projects that they're heading up and getting ready to launch or have already launched. If you haven't already checked out Chrysalis Endeavors, their card games are incredible. They're a lot of fun. You can see them over on our channel at Tabletop Misfits as we ran through it. Maybe next week what we'll do, since we have a group that comes pretty often, is Corey, if you want to, we'll take a week off of Tavern Talks to have a conversation, and we'll play another game of Drunken Dwarf Draft. And we can show off his awesome game, as well as everybody's going to bring their most horrific dwarven accent as we each run through the through his fun game, and hopefully you all will check that out. So and then of course Dungeon Stream with Chris and Josh here have been an awesome support to our stream, and we want you guys to go support them as well. So
hey, we love you guys, man. You guys got good stuff here.
Absolutely.
Until then, tonight is our drink-free evening. But next week we'll have beers again, and clink your glasses, and we will see you next week for another Tavern Talks.
Bye, guys. Have a good night.